Welcome back to another episode of SKC Live. I'm Brian Kipp. I'm really excited to have Ari Jacob here. Marketing, social media, PR, influencer, everything expert when it comes to digital marketing. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. Good to see you.
Yeah, so while you have stirred up the internet over the last couple of years, wow. I mean, you've done everything. I mean, you're building brands, you're working with brands. So tell me a little bit about like what you're doing right now. Like,
Thanks. So I have a talent agency. We're kind of boutique. I used to work with a lot of influencers. Now I sort of picked a very, I think I have like 5 clients that are exclusive with our agency, and they're just really creative people that I believe in. They're growing and they're all across the board. I have a base jumper who jumps off the stuff and travels around with Jake Paul. And I have a guy named Rodney D. Norman who is like an older gentleman, looks like Santa Claus, but he does like these funny, inspirational he's a comedian. And so I've got him, he's a comedian, and yeah, just dancers and singing artists. And but a good like small crew of people that I represent. And I am developing a new startup that hopefully I'll be working with you on. Called the Cookie Jar.
Super excited about that.
It's not what people think. It's not actual. Well, it is food, but like it's
it kind of depends on what kind of food you're talking about.
Yeah, it's a really fun concept.
Yes.
I've been thinking about for a couple years, and I sort of revived the idea, and a lot of people are excited about it. So
yeah, when you brought the idea to me, I immediately got it. I think I even called you. I was like, this is amazing. And you're like, hey, you want to work with me on it? I'm like, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, going back to the people that you represent, I know there's some people you can't probably like name drop, but like I know just by knowing you, some pretty notable people. And it's really good that you're, that throughout the years of everything that you've done, because you've managed probably dozens of influencers.
Yeah, I think at one point I had 85 of the biggest TikTok superstars out there. So,
oh my gosh. So did you get in right on the ground floor of TikTok?
Yeah. So when Musical.ly switched over to TikTok, I was already working with brands and with influencers, mainly on Instagram and YouTube. And I lived in LA at 1600 Vine, which is kind of where all the big Vine stars started. Jake Paul, Logan Paul, King Batch. I mean, some of these people are even maybe not as relevant now, but they were really relevant back
I love
then.
King Batch.
Yeah,
I love his
great.
content. I don't know how. I mean, like literally, he reinvents himself all the time. Like I'm like, you can't get anything better than that video he just put out. Then he puts out another amazing video.
Well, that's sort of what being a true influencer is reinventing yourself constantly.
Being an amazing content creator. It's funny, Gary V, which I know that you know, or Gary Vaynerchuk, he preaches that all the time. I mean, if there could be a message that when somebody's talking like blue to the face and screaming in the top of the lungs, create content, multiple posts every day, do something. And the people that are doing it are making tens, if not hundreds, if not millions of dollars, a month and a year.
Yeah, and it doesn't pay off right away. That's the thing that people need to understand.
They get frustrated with that.
Yeah, you have to be creating for a while and figuring out what works and what doesn't, and listening to other people that have done it and collaborating with people that are at your level or higher than you, so that if you listen to any podcast or interview that Mr. Beast has done, like he breaks it down into these sort of finite strategies that he does. And if people were really to go in and study what some of the biggest creators have done, I think they could be really successful with it. But, people just want to fast forward to the success. And unfortunately, I just really don't feel like that exists, except for, to be really honest, is on when TikTok blew up. I think a lot of the people that gained a lot of success on TikTok were at the right place at the right time. in culture, the pandemic. There was no other forms of entertainment happening.
That's exactly it. And TikTok needs, like, if anybody needs to thank the pandemic, which obviously was an awful thing to happen, but TikTok blew up in the pandemic.
Right.
And, you know, because everybody was talking about, I mean, the first thing that I saw that blew up on it was the guy, and you probably know his name, cruising down a skateboard with his ocean spray.
And that was probably already like a year after.
And it blew up?
After I was representing talent on there. My client was one of the first people to blow up on TikTok, and she did this meme. It was, she tasted kombucha for the first time, and you probably saw the memes. Like, she made this kind of gross face, and then she made like a, oh, maybe face. And then, so it was all these memes of like gross and then maybe. And so that was in 2019. So
oh, wow.
She was one of the first people to start getting sponsorships, and brands really didn't know how to advertise on there. They just knew that there was a lot of eyeballs on TikTok. And so I did a lot of just like education, like with brands. And sometimes, you know, I think a lot of times that really works when you're a marketer, any type of consultant or anything like that. It's like when you explain to somebody what they're spending their money on versus just like, you need to spend your money here.
Yeah, for the brand side, I definitely know how to sell that to my clients and brands. But on the other side, which you're more of an expert than I am on, is teaching somebody how to be an influencer. Like, anybody can be an influencer. That's actually the one thing that I really like about the digital element of marketing, social media, is that you don't have to be like beautiful. You don't have to be in shape. You don't have to be funny. You could just be, have one small talent, or just be yourself, which a lot of times people find amusing. And you can, as long as you're dedicated to that cause, or whatever that industry is, or that topic. You know, the one thing I had this whole conversation with somebody about, and I know we're going to get into Elon here in a little bit, but I think Elon, not only did he blow up with obviously Tesla, SpaceX, you know, even probably a little bit before that, his memes. He had the most creative memes, and people started following him on Twitter for that. And I remember watching, I started following him years ago, but everybody kept saying, hey, when are you going to get on Vine? When are you going to get on TikTok? When are you going to get on Instagram? And his responses always were, you're lucky to get this from me because I'm so busy, right? But he kind of really, you know, he created a small audience of people that just followed him just for his memes. You know?
Well, each platform is different, and I think that Twitter rewards people that are interesting, witty, controversial. So,
yep.
You know, and that's what's, I think, interesting for brands. For example, I was on there was recently sort of this like emergency Twitter Spaces where you could see almost every single brand that you could imagine was on this sort of like public call where Elon was on it, and then somebody from Twitter, like head of advertising or something like that, was on it, sort of like calming down the brands because, you know, they're like, what's going to happen on Twitter? There's misinformation or there's, you know, negative sentiment on this brand, you know, worried about what's happening with Twitter. But I think that you can't advertise the same way as a brand on Twitter than you do on YouTube, than you do on Instagram, than you do on TikTok.
Yep.
I see TikTok as more of a like traditional advertising, like a television commercial, where it's not so much direct response, like click a link and purchase right from there. It's more of
it's branding.
Branding, exactly.
Like, for example, like, you know, the one thing I really enjoyed, and maybe I just fell off of this and I'm just don't see it as much, but remember the Burger King Wendy wars, you know, over Twitter? And it wasn't even wars, it was really, but I don't some people would say that it was staged. Some people would say that it was just organically, they were just throwing.
I went to a conference, and I'm pretty sure that the Wendy's agency, I mean, they spent years not only building that sassiness of Wendy, but also trying to get it to the point where they were able to do what what they wanted to do essentially with the executives, because it wasn't just like, hey, here's the keys to the kingdom, go be sassy on Twitter. I mean, to convince old school executives to be okay with that, I think took a minute. But then once they showed the value of this team of executives that were the ones responding quickly to things, I think Wendy built their brand around that.
100%. And like for example, like if I was representing Burger King or advising Burger King, I would say get the king and do a lot of content of him in the everyday community, not just with Burger King, but like riding a bike, going to a park, going on a roller coaster. I mean,
I think people need to know who personifies their brand, even if they don't have a mascot, right? Like I think they need to
touch on all of them.
They need to know
touch on all senses. But the thing is, the one thing that you actually did bring up, and I'm glad you brought it up to remind me, is I think that the old school mentality of marketing, brick and mortar, traditional print media, like the people that are like so stuck in their ways of like, yep, you know what, we're going to continue pounding the pavement on this. We got our radio budget, we got our TV budget, but they never give any budget to the new generation of marketing, right? I think a lot of these people are starting to age out, but there's still a lot of people that are still in those positions. I personally have not that issue, but like there's a few industries that I want to tap into more of that have great relationships, but those powers that be just above the people I know are still old school. And they don't want to carve out any more budget for their social media or to come up with these clever, marketing events or stunts or, I'm pretty sure, I've heard that you've done some really, really, really interesting stunts. So
yeah, I mean, I think that the problem with sort of the explosion of digital was this ability to like attribution, right? You could actually say like this sale came in from SEO or this sale came in from a display ad or from paid media, whatever it is, right? Mm-hmm. The problem is that there's all these touch points with a brand that you can't attribute to one specific thing, right?
100%.
Especially when it comes to social.
Well, the thing is that I have a lot of clients that come in or potential clients, and within the first 5-10 minutes of the conversation, all right, what's my ROI on this campaign that you're about to pitch me? And it's like, it cringes me because I think that a traditional, that if you want to go to a SEO house, you want to go to a PPC house, you want to go to a media buying house, that's the question you ask is number one. Mm-hmm. When you go to a brand agency like me, a digital marketing agency, a full service advertising marketing agency, that's not the first thing you ask. The first thing you should be asking is, how does my brand perceive to the digital market?
Right.
Where can we improve? Because that right there is no ROI to that. I mean, you're gonna invest money to make your brand look better, get everything lined up. I always tell people websites are like your storefront. If it's dirty, messy, broken links, it's the same thing if I walk into your store and it's dirty, broken tables, outlights, your neon signs like flickering like it's scary movies, like you gotta make it look presentable.
Yeah, I think people don't put as much I mean, it just depends sort of who you're talking to at the company. I understand why brands want to know, if I'm spending this, I'm going to get money back. But I think there's this long-term value of building a strong brand. I mean, I was just reading, I think it was like old emails going back and forth. I don't know if it was Jeff Bezos was looking at buying Ring, like the Ring camera.
He did buy it.
Yeah, he bought it, right? And so the emails basically was, what he was saying is, I'm buying their market their what's it called when you own sort of they're the first thing you think of when you think of those types of cameras. Mm-hmm. He said, I'm not buying technology. Mm-hmm. I'm buying the mind share of right. And so I think whenever you have a company, like for me, that's what I would want to have with any business I start or I'm running. And I think in order to have mind share, you have to have the social and the branding and the website, and everything has to work together. It's not just, and if you just only look at, okay, what's my ROI on XYZ,
No, we'll get there. We'll get to the ROI. I mean,
Of course, yeah.
the number one thing, so when the clients come in, it's like, okay, so let's fix all of this. Let's get the brand messaging. Actually, maybe the messaging that you currently have is broken. It's not relating. It's old. Let's refresh this. So once we get all those assets together, and then we say, okay, now we're going to start advertising in the space, whether or not it's radio, TV, obviously social, creating all the campaigns. Definitely we should be talking about ROI at that point, but also, like I always tell clients, depending on what kind of business it is, look at your numbers today. All right. And then let's look at your numbers, a quarter from now. Sometimes I even say next year, because some of the businesses are seasonal, right? Vegas, is a very seasonal place, not really for locals, but like for tourism, right? The same thing with like, I've got an office in Miami. And in Miami, season's starting like this week, and it's going to be slammed all the way up. I've got a brand new restaurant that just opened up in Brickell, and they are like in the black from day one. And of course, I want to say, hey, I want to take a lot of the credit, but I can't because now, did I set the brand up? Did I do all that stuff? Of course, but season's starting.
Yeah,
I mean, it's supply and demand.
Well, I think, I guess just what I try to tell brands is like, you have to take opportunities. The world that we live in, people move so fast. And for example, that kombucha girl that I represented, right? She went super viral and she's on all these memes, and a smaller kombucha company that was, run by one guy that was very involved in the company and sort of made a lot of marketing decisions. He straight up like invited her over to his house in LA to make kombucha and like really experience it and all this stuff. And it was, a decent deal, but I'm thinking like, I want the Pepsi of kombucha or whatever, the major brand. And that brand finally came around, but like 6 months later, when she had already signed the deal with the small nimble company and we had exclusivity, but it's because there's so much red tape that those bigger companies have to go through. So I would say, like, if you're a marketing person and you have the ability to go directly to, you have some autonomy, those are the times to take chances. And hopefully the bigger companies will start to realize, like, we have to do the same thing. Otherwise we're going to lose that mind share but with social media, you have to act fast. It's like, the brand needs to reach out to these people as quickly as possible.
So speaking of acting fast, I happen to be with you, and Elon posted up that he is not leaving Twitter until it's fixed.
Yeah.
And what does Ari do? She runs, grabs her cookie jar.
Well, yeah. Let me explain what a cookie jar is. So, Cookie Jar is a company that provides clothing and essentials on demand, 24/7 delivery. So, for example, you're out late with your friends, you want to get into something comfortable, you can go on cookiejar.co, cookie jar with a K, and basically order it like you would on Uber Eats. We're going to get on all those platforms, but we want to drive people to our website to get the delivery. But essentially it'll come with, a top, a bottom, and shoes to wear. And then we'll have add-ons like, toothpaste, toothbrush, all sorts of stuff, maybe even like phone chargers. And I mean, it's literally brand new. Yeah, when I was here talking to you about it, we're just talking about the marketing and the rollout and the website and everything.
Yeah.
But I have, sample clothing basically at my house. I don't even have the packaging yet. We had just finished the logo.
Yep.
And so I saw that Elon Musk tweeted that he's staying at the office, sleeping at Twitter's headquarters in San Francisco until Twitter's fixed. So I'm like, he needs a cookie jar. So what a cool opportunity, to get him a cookie. I know where he's at. It's close by. And,
well, it's not really close by. You literally had to jump on a plane.
Well, I live in Vegas. So it's not like he wasn't in New York HQ.
Yeah. But you probably would have done it too.
I don't know. I would have thought of, do I have any good friends in New York? but yeah, so I saw him tweet that, and here's what goes through my head. It's like I could put together a cookies package, within the next couple hours, and so I could do that, and then my time, maybe 5 hours of my time, and then to go fly a couple $100 to fly up to San Francisco and back. So my risk is like, let's say $600-700, right? Of what it's going to cost to go up there and drop it off. Even if he doesn't get it at all, I've got content now for my socials and, kind of put the idea in people's heads like, oh, okay, if I'm pulling an all-nighter at work, this isn't just for, girls on the strip that are in a dress. This is like...
Are you talking about the walk of shame?
Yeah, the walk of shame, which is like, it is going to be fun to sort of like play on that for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
And the cookie jar is kind of like the Uber Black that you order the girl, to show off. It's like, oh, you don't have to walk home in your dress from last night. Let me order you a cookie jar. But there's so many other, reasons you might need a cookie jar. Like if you lose your luggage at the airport, let's say you're a mom and your kid like spits up on you or like poops on you or something, right? Like you might want a cookie jar.
100%. Yeah.
So there's like dozens of reasons why people might need clothes between the hours of like 8 p.m. and 10 a.m. the next morning where they can't get clothing, But so this was one of them with the whole Elon thing. And so, but so the risk versus reward, right? The risk is, let's call it under $1,000 and several hours of my time. So let's just say he doesn't post, he doesn't even get it. I still get that content, which I think is worth, to me, it's worth $1,000. If he happens to post it, or let's say he ever happens to wear it. Let's say he ever happens to wear it and someone takes a picture of him in the outfit that I got him, like forever, I could use that content. And what is that worth? That's worth $1 million. That's a Super Bowl ad. If he tweets about it, if he ever talks about it, whatever. Also, like, what if the world is so small. I feel like, it's one of those things where who knows? I might end up with somebody, in front of somebody in a business conversation and be like, oh, you're the one that sent that thing,
Yep.
So I just feel like to me, the risk versus reward is it's worth it. And a lot of companies, they don't do those types of things.
People need to literally take notes because, like, I'm telling you, like, you saw an opportunity and you're like, you know what? I'm gonna take the risk. It's my time, it's money. I'm literally gonna go. I mean, I saw I saw the content, and I think the content's worth a lot more than $1,000.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing. To actually now since we're on the Twitter Elon conversation, obviously everybody knows I'm a super fan of Elon, and not because he bought Twitter, but well before that. If it wasn't for the fact that he fought to create EVs, we wouldn't have EVs today. No car company was going to literally get away from their deals with fossil fuels and all that stuff. And I'm not making it political. He literally fought it and went all the way through. And of course, solar. I mean, he's an innovator. So Elon, obviously EVs, solar, SpaceX, Starlink, Neuralink. I mean, he's got everything. Now he buys Twitter, which is a little bit outside the scope of you would think this guy wants to get into. Stirs up a whole hornet's nest with the media, right? They're just like, what is he going to do? He's going to, like, what's his plan? If you don't think that this guy has a master plan to literally bring in the community together, social media community, but on his level, on like what he thinks that the community needs to be. I've been saying since 2015, since I started this company, we need to hold media companies, social media companies, Googles of the world accountable because they can control the narrative of everything on the internet. And so Elon comes along, everybody thinks that he's going to disrupt that. I don't even think that he doesn't care about that.
Well, yeah. I mean, I have so many thoughts. I guess my first thought is, I do think that Elon has a plan. I also just think that he has so many smart people, like right there to help him. I mean, I know for a fact that he has Jason Calacanis, who's like a big VC guy who's been on Twitter pretty much since it came out, who's like, I don't know if he's an official advisor, but he's got these people helping out. He's got this guy, Sriram Krishnan, who worked for Mark Zuckerberg at Facebook. He worked for Evan Spiegel, whatever, at Snapchat. He worked for Jack Dorsey at Twitter. I mean, and he's now like advising on the Twitter stuff, so it's not like he doesn't have the best of the best at his fingertips. Plus, he's interacting with Mr. Beast. I mean, if there's not a better person to help Elon figure out what Twitter needs, it's like a Mr. Beast, or it's what's that really popular like tech Mark I forget what his name is, but he's like a big tech like YouTuber, like he reviews tech whatever. But I mean, he's like any creator. A lot of them are big fans of Elon, so get those people in a room. Tell him, what does Twitter need to compete with TikTok? I mean, TikTok came out of nowhere. If TikTok can come out of nowhere and explode, then why can't Twitter? And I feel like,
well, the thing is, I think Twitter's already exploded from day one. I think just kind of like every social media platform has fake accounts, bots, and the one thing I really, like I watch a lot of the town halls and that with Elon. I'm again super fan of Elon, and I really like to hear his perspective, because I'm trying to figure out where he's trying to go with this, and I don't think anybody really knows. He's really smart at not letting people know. But when he basically came out and said, "Listen, it's not fair that because you have a relationship with somebody in Twitter, that you're going to get a blue check mark because you're a weather person and." And bumfuck,
right.
Kansas, which is not really fair. And if there's two topics of conversation, you get a blue check mark because you're aligning more with their views, and you're over here with the same following, and they're not going to give it to you, but you're on the same platform or the same level. It just wasn't fair. So I think everybody's in this uproar like, oh, he's going to charge money for a blue check mark. No, that's not what he's doing. He's doing it for A, to verify that you're a real human, for one. Two, he's basically, verifying everything through, because right now it was only through Apple iOS.
Yeah.
And you had to have a iCloud account, Apple ID, and verify. I did it with a company. And it verifies it immediately. Great. So now
you get some other like perks. You can upload 10-minute videos. You can edit your posts. I mean,
100%. But it wasn't just about the blue check mark. And the thing is, I think what he's attempting to do, which is going to force the hand of Instagram, force the hand of Facebook, force the hand of anybody who has a verifying platform, that you need to have the ability to have a level playing field for everybody.
I don't know if Instagram is going to play ball. I mean, I hope they do. It's really interesting because they have all these like requirements, and a lot of the influencers, like I even think, some of the influencers that, may have like spoken negatively about me in the past, like to the New York Times reporter and stuff. Like, I think that they knew that you had to get 7 articles in mainstream press in order to get verified. And so I think, some of these bad actor journalists like dangled that as a carrot of like, hey, I'll put you in a couple articles. Like if you kind of say what I want you to say. I mean, obviously I don't know what they said, but that's kind of my perception, is like you have these young people that the holy grail is getting verified. And so if how you get verified is through mainstream media articles, that gives a lot of power to these journalists, right? Because they're like, I'm going to put you in the article.
100%.
So that's quid pro quo. And that's not, that is, to me, the equivalent of a journalist paying someone to be in their article and as a source, right? Because you're, in a way,
So you're paying for media, and
attention is currency in the world we live in today.
No, 100%. And the thing is, both me and you, very easily. Well, actually, I know that you're already verified on Instagram. I'm not. But if I wanted to, I could literally, leverage my PR contacts, my relationships with all the media companies I know, and get my 5 to 7 articles mainstream and get verified. It's not a huge priority for me. And I think the blue check mark is cool to have, and it does actually, it would help me in my line of business 100%. But I think to go back to the Twitter side of it is that, but I also just want to know if that's really you. I'm communicating with you. Mm-hmm. Now, Instagram, you're right.
I think that's what Twitter is trying to fix right now, is because when they first launched that Twitter Blue thing, everybody thought that he was going to verify human beings, and then it just became do you have a credit card on file at iTunes? So they kind of stopped all that, and I think he's been tweeting basically saying, hey, we're going to figure out how we're going to roll this out again.
Well, the thing is, I actually figured out, I don't want to say an issue, but I own a couple different brands. Well, I would have to create an Apple ID for every single brand to then do the verification, which I thought was actually okay. Now, if you go back, it costs less than a penny to create a fake account, okay? He's making it to where it's going to cost you $7.99 a month in perpetuity to keep that blue check mark, right? To say, hey, I'm a real person. Mm-hmm. Now, are people going to do that? Are the scammers going to do that? I think he's going to have one hell of a, an issue on his hand when it comes to that. Again, I never try to get ahead of genius, because he's definitely a genius. But he literally mentioned in his Barron Institute town hall that he did, he literally talked about how he wrote the code for PayPal, what was called PayX or PayCat, whatever it was. Now it's PayPal. And he wrote all the code, and he's like, there were so many things I wanted to do when we were writing this code, but the technology wasn't there. I could write it, I could make it work, but we had nothing to connect it to. So he kind of leaked out the fact that he's looking for it to be more of a verification for maybe payments down the road. So you have Apple Pay, you've got PayPal, you got all these other things.
Yeah, I think he's definitely, he created PayPal, right? So
he's one of the creators. Yeah, well, him and Jack. And then, then Jack Dorsey went on and opened up.
No, Jack didn't create PayPal. I thought it was David Sachs and Peter Thiel and Elon. Jack did Twitter, and then Jack went off and did Square. Pretty sure.
All right. We need a fact check here. Yeah, we need a fact check here.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So
no, you're 100% with all the other people for sure. But I thought Jack and Elon worked at PayPal together.
I don't think so. I'm pretty sure Jack was always Twitter. A long time ago, I read this book called Hatching Twitter, and it was, I think it was the one guy that got ousted from Twitter. It's so interesting because all these big tech platforms have these sort of stories about how just nefarious things happened, and not all of them have a movie. I think it's really interesting what happened with Tinder and Whitney Wolf, who filed a sexual harassment suit, and then she left and started Bumble, and then Bumble became $1 billion company. I mean, there's when you look at the tech industry is just so full of all the things greed, sex, fraud, stealing, everything you can think of.
Here we go. All right. So we got, definitely Peter Thiel. Yep. But it's funny because you don't have Elon Musk on there. But I don't think Elon Musk was. I think he had shares in it.
Oh, he didn't start it?
I don't know. Yeah, we definitely don't need how rich. But I would definitely look up and see Jack Dorsey specifically. Creators of PayPal.
Who's the PayPal mafia? Yeah, see Peter Thiel.
Yep, Peter Thiel. Just put creators of Pay. Was Jack Dorsey a creator of PayPal?
Oh, but so Elon wasn't?
Yeah, see, but that's really weird. It's not pulling up. I thought they had a relationship from PayPal, and And so Jack Dorsey Wikipedia. Go to Jack Dorsey's Wikipedia.
Yeah, so I read a book, I think it was by Biz Stone, or it was about Biz Stone. He was like the guy that got ousted, I'm pretty sure. I don't remember. It was a long time ago.
All right, well, we're probably going to look like idiots later because everybody's like, no, he wasn't a part of it. I don't know. For some reason, I thought he was. And you're probably 100% right.
I mean, I think, if you really want to understand, like, who's running all these companies, it's like go and do some of the research on these people. Like, for example, Peter Thiel. Do you know about the whole how he sued or how he funded the lawsuit between Hulk Hogan and Gawker? I think it's like an epic story.
No, tell me.
So basically, Peter Thiel, have you ever seen The Social Network?
Of course.
So remember when he comes in and he invests in Facebook.
He's like, I'll give you your first 500,000.
Yeah, and then they kind of screw over the other guy and like they tell him to sign anything. Anyway, so Peter Thiel was that investor in Facebook, and he's done all these other, big investments. I guess he was involved in PayPal. Mm-hmm. So this is a billionaire who I guess everyone in Silicon Valley knew was gay, but he hadn't come out as gay, so he didn't come out of the closet. So Gawker, which was this very like tabloidy online publication that was kind of mean. Like they would put out pretty mean things about celebrities and just like wealthy people in Silicon Valley, whatever. Mm-hmm. And so they put out an article. I think it was like the title was like Peter Thiel is totally gay. And so even though people in Silicon Valley knew that, I mean, Peter Thiel didn't like it. And it was kind of messed up that they outed him for being gay without him doing it first, right?
Yeah.
So he had this vendetta against Gawker. He really hated them. And when he went to people and said, like, what can I do? You're a billionaire, you could do anything. You got all the money in the world. They were like, you can't do anything about the media. They just operate, the First Amendment. They can say whatever they want. Like, it wasn't false what they wrote. So it's not, it's probably in poor taste, but you can't do anything about it. So when you tell a billionaire there's nothing he can do about something,
he's going to figure out a way to try to do it. Yeah.
So I don't remember how much time goes by. I want to say it's like 5 or 10 years. And somebody comes to Peter Thiel with a business proposition. And it was kind of like, hey, I have this idea. You invest in this, this fund or this project, $10 million. And all the money will go towards basically funding anybody that has a lawsuit against Gawker, a defamation lawsuit. The goal, which was to basically shut Gawker down. Mm-hmm. And, these publications, they have insurance companies and whatnot. And it's really hard to sue the media because of the First Amendment. And so from what I remember, they start investing, they start putting money into all these cases. So, anybody that has a case against Gawker, this company who hired this guy, Charles Harder, this attorney. Charles, I don't even think knew who was funding the company. He just, whoever was the head of that fund went and got the attorney, this really great attorney. And then they would reach out to people suing Gawker and saying, hey, we'll help you basically. And well, why are you helping us? Don't worry about it. We're, whatever. So Hulk Hogan files this lawsuit against Gawker because Hulk Hogan's best friend, it's like Bubba the Love Sponge, leaks all these basically sex tapes of Bubba's wife hooking up with Hulk Hogan. And I think Hulk was just saying crazy things. And it was just so it got put out there. I don't remember the details, but essentially Hulk Hogan sues. And here comes Charles Harder, the attorney. And he's like, hey, we're going to help you. And so Hulk doesn't even know, but his attorney starts getting checks, or I don't know how it starts working, but basically Charles Harder represents Hulk Hogan. And they went forward with the case, and basically they were starting to win the case, I believe, and there was a part where Hulk Hogan could have, I think, sued for pain and suffering, something like that. And that's what would have triggered the insurance company to basically pick up the tab if they lost. So on that one count, he didn't file. He didn't sue for pain and suffering, essentially on purpose, so that no matter what, they would be sued personally, the CEO of the company, to take them out, essentially.
Yeah, for sure.
And they did. They won. Hulk Hogan won. I think it was like over $100 million, and then they ended up settling for like a $30 million settlement. And then after that, the whole thing came out that Hulk Hogan won. Then it sort of got leaked that Peter Thiel was behind it. And then when Peter Thiel got asked about it, he's like, it's one of the most philanthropic things I've ever done in my career, because these people are mean and they try to destroy people's lives. And I mean, I hate to say it, that, a billionaire could use his money to do that. But, if anybody knows what happened to me, it's like, it's kind of inspiring that, well, if a billionaire could do it, of course I think I could do it. But no, it's just, if somebody tells you you can't do something and then it's wrong, like, you have to fight against it, And I think, Peter Thiel discovered this really interesting way to get sort of back at Gawker, which, I don't think should have been doing the things that they were doing. Leaking revenge porn and stuff. I think that's just wrong.
Oh yeah,
and I think now it's illegal in a lot of places.
Oh, 100%. But I mean, even with you, I mean, you got canceled because you were blowing up, and again, we haven't really talked about this directly. I mean, we've touched on it because we know each other, but everything I've read up on, it seemed like you were blowing up and you had a really good agency, and all of a sudden, you've got somebody that has huge media ties that is now partners or has a piece of another company, a competing company, and they got to get you out of the way.
Yeah.
And so I'm just going to go right after you, and I'm going to attack you, and I'm going to cancel you for really not a thing. There's no merit behind it. And of course, I mean, if you've obviously, if you just look up the whole case, but I mean, you've been on Tucker Carlson. Your attorney represents some of the biggest people that have like the First Amendment, and Second Amendment rights taken away from them, right?
Well, I think any entrepreneur. Do you ever see the show Silicon Valley?
I've seen it. I'm not like everybody's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're not watching it like religiously. I should be. I just don't watch a lot of TV.
So anyway, it's this show about this guy in Silicon Valley that starts and like everything that goes wrong, that can possibly go wrong, goes wrong, And I think every entrepreneur has experienced that at some level of like, oh my God, like I was just at this precipice of success and like this thing goes wrong or this person stabs me in the back. And a lot of that stuff happens. But I think, what happened to me is just like any entrepreneur, I had failures. I'm not perfect. I made mistakes, but when your reputation gets completely tarnished and you're not at a point where you're, successful enough that you can bounce back like really quickly, or I don't know, like what happened to me is I was on the up and up in my business, in my career. Everything was going the way I thought it should go, but I didn't have a big investor. I was bootstrapping, and I felt like that was part of my story. So that's kind of why I put it out there. Looking back, maybe I shouldn't have, right? Maybe I should have pretended like, oh, I've got this big backer.
I got Peter Thiel in my back pocket.
Right? Because, and it's tough as an entrepreneur. Like, I don't like to lie. I'm like the worst liar ever. But sometimes I feel like in business, you have to fake it till, that's why they say fake it till you make it, right? Because if you put out too many vulnerabilities right up front, then people know exactly where to attack you.
When you become successful, people try to find the vulnerabilities with you. And you're right. You kind of have to show that hey, you know what? I'm already stable up to this point. Yeah, you can come in and try to knock down a few things. But I had a very similar thing kind of happen, years ago, like I grew up here in Vegas, went to Miami, did really well in Miami, and decided, hey, I'm going to move back to Vegas. The industry was starting to blow up out here in around 2005, and I came out with a good chunk of money. And I had a business opportunity with this billionaire, and his family sat on the board of Wachovia Bank. I mean, like we're talking like a lot of money. And I'm thinking like, hey, this guy's the perfect guy to partner with.
Right.
But he wanted me to basically he's like, listen, of course I've got the money. And of course, there's a relationship here, but I need you to put up what I need you to match, what I'm going to be putting in. And literally got hosed. And I went back to my attorney, and my attorney did a quick background check on the guy. And he goes, Brian, you might want to walk away from this one. And I'm like, why? It's wrong what he did. He's like, I know, but the guy, he not only does he sit on the board of this major bank, which obviously eventually got bought out, but they also own law firms, like huge litigation law firms. If you know anything about legal, litigation is the people that go and argue and throw paperwork at you all the time. He's like, Brian, he goes, literally, like it'll sink my firm just representing you, even if I did it at a quarter of my rate.
Right.
And we're not talking about a little bit of money. We're talking a decent amount of money.
Right.
And I learned my lesson that I'm not ever going to put 90+% of my net worth into a project. Doesn't matter how much I believe in it. Now, you hear the whole like go all in, entrepreneur, blah. Yeah, of course I did that pretty much. And I remember being so broke, like I was like literally, trying to like get change just to go buy a Subway sandwich. I mean, it got bad.
Right.
And
I've been there too. But
reinventing
you remember
yourself.
those moments once you get back, like those, you'll always like remember those moments and look back and be like, okay, if I made it through that. I mean, that's so, I was at the height of my career, a journalist, that was working with my competitors, wrote a hit piece about me.
Sorry. If you heard it, you heard it.
In the New York Times, and like you don't really recover from like a bad New York Times article if you're a little baby startup, but what I learned is that I had the truth on my side, and I really at that point felt like I have to fight back, because like what is my whole career worth if I let somebody like destroy me like that? I mean, I was in a dark place for a while, and then I just like, what am I going to do? Just be like upset about this for the rest of my life? No, like I'm either going to have to do something about it, or, and even if I try and am not successful, I could always say, hey, you only have a year to file for a defamation case. So if I do try to get somebody to represent me on contingency or whatever, and if it doesn't work out, like I wasted a year of my life, but I could always say, hey, at least I tried, and I'll never regret it. And thank God that I tried, because I filed a lawsuit against the New York Times, and I mean, we're still in it. It takes forever, but I gained a lot of like inner strength, I think, and experience that hopefully will help other people, women entrepreneurs, anybody that's like, being attacked and canceled. And I think, everybody has a right to get their side of the story out. The problem is that the media is so political in the way that it's controlled. I mean, even if you're not political, unfortunately, you have to understand how the game is played. And if I can help people understand that game between the politics, between the lawyers and the talent agencies and the media companies and the different journalists and their relationships, and the fact that journalists have talent agents and representatives and book publishers. It's like when you look at all the companies that own like food companies like Monsanto and stuff, there's only a few companies that own like a bunch of different companies. That's what you have to understand. Same with media, but it's all about kind of going back and pulling back the curtain and understanding how all these people work together, because it's just like anything else. I mean, if you're friends with someone, like let's say you and I are friends, right? If somebody came in with this like terrible story about me, And it's like, maybe you're like, oh, I don't know if that's like true, but like, what would be in it for you to like, to expose me, let's say you don't have anything to do with it. You like, I don't know, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's like, you may not have a reason, but you're not a journalist, right? That's not your job. Where I think journalists are so in bed with each other that it's like, oh, this thing happened to this person. Well, there's no benefit in me telling this story to my audience, right? And so you get enough people that there's more benefit into just ignoring what happened, not necessarily even lying about it, just ignoring it. That if somebody gets hurt and taken down by a powerful journalist. So I think like my new sort of mission is to like expose these bad actor journalists that are doing, nefarious things to people that don't deserve it. And then maybe their colleagues will be like, I don't want to follow in that person's footsteps. Maybe I should be a little bit more
Let's just hope it's not like the cartel, because like you literally take out the head of the cartel and then there's always that next person that wants to be the leader. So you go and you take out, the top person like Taylor Lorenz, right? And you take her out. Boom. All right. There's somebody that wants to be the next Taylor.
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah. But I do think that, let's say, the New York Times hasn't lost a defamation lawsuit since the 1960s. And that's, I believe, because there's a case, New York Times versus Sullivan, where they decided that if you're a public figure, if you're a public figure and someone defames you, you have to prove malice.
Yeah.
And basically you have to get into that person's head and prove to a jury that like that person had malicious intentions or whatever.
I actually think that public figures are targets. And I definitely think, you have to be able to report on them, your thoughts, your opinions and things like that. But you're not, at the time, you weren't a public.
Exactly. But that's the thing, right? Yeah. But that they were there, I think they're trying to say I am. And it's like today, and where we are today, who's to say who's a public figure? If you have 1,000 Twitter followers, right?
Okay, but this is all going back. It's all circling back to why Elon wants to level the playing field for that blue check mark.
And now you have like citizen journalists that are putting out, like he launched, I think it already existed, but they're pushing it more. It's like community notes on Twitter where you can like fact check, like so if somebody tweets something, you can fact check it. And so they've been like fact checking like President Biden and like the New York Times and stuff.
Everybody, yeah.
But it's just so interesting, especially interesting. Like, have you been following the FTX stuff or whatever?
Of course.
It's like, the New York Times basically gets an exclusive with Sam Friedman.
Nathan Friedman, yeah.
And it's a puff piece. It's literally goes so easy on him, doesn't mention fraud, none of the things. And so, and that's the New York Times. But, it's like,
I mean, honestly,
if that's not the best example of somebody buying the media, I don't know what else is.
But I think if they would do the report today, it would be a different piece. I'm not defending the New York Times, but I think they got it so early before really everything came out.
Maybe
some of it. I mean, the thing is that here's the irony: Jordan Belfort, Wolf of Wall Street, right? He literally is sitting back going, hold on a second. He's like, if this guy is not in shackles and extradited to the United States by now, there's something wrong with this whole world. Like every person that's ever been convicted of a fraud, pyramid scheme, Enron, all that, right? Bernie Madoff's got to be like, because this guy literally, whether or not they believe that he purposely intended to defraud people, I personally think the guy didn't. I think the only thing he's probably really guilty of is being not a good business guy, inflating numbers, which obviously that's illegal. You can't do that. Trying to, puff up. I think it was like a 10.
But didn't they say that he bought like that his parents own like a $16 million home in the Bahamas, and his parents are like professors at Stanford or something?
Well, Yes, his parents are very his parents are very established people. Even like his girlfriend that was running Alameda, which was what the VC fund or the hedge fund. But at the end of the day, I'm definitely not sticking up for the guy. I think the guy literally didn't understand. He wanted to create this whole thing and then create his own agenda and push on his own views, whether or not they're political, personal, climate change too. I mean, he was the second largest donor to Democrats on this last midterm.
I know.
And the irony is that when they go and they question different Democrats, they're like, yeah, but he also gave to Republicans. Great. Like I don't like to say I'm a Republican Democrat. I like to say I'm an American that's educated. And I'm going to go with the side that I feel like is more. But if you follow me enough, you understand where I lean towards. But
the media, I mean, you have to know which
way
politically people are leaning.
They need to be after him.
The media is leaning.
They need to be going after him. And when I mean going after him and attacking him with the right questions.
But this isn't the first time that the media has done this. I mean, if you look at Elizabeth Holmes, put her on every freaking magazine cover. They did the same thing for SBF.
Yep.
And so like they can't. They're going to do a 3-page expose on me and my TikTok agency, but like they can't focus on these people that they're pumping up. It's like, give me a freaking break. And by the way, they lied about me. They
no, 100%.
Get it right.
Yeah, no, I read it.
But it's like they use the media to put whatever narrative they want to put in people's. I mean, today
that
actually
needs to
I was
be in
dying
check.
Laughing.
That needs to be put in check.
There was like I want to say, I don't know if it was CBS or NBC, did this like whole story recently, like last week, about Hunter Biden's laptop, and I'm like, and they're like, we got this guy, and he he went into the laptop, and yes, it really is Hunter's, and it's like, I think it was
2 years later.
Yeah, Megyn Kelly was talking about it, and she's like, then they roll back this tape of Donald Trump talking to
60 Minutes.
Yes.
And she goes, I'm 60 Minutes. We don't put that type of lies on 60 Minutes.
Yeah.
And Donald Trump's like, no, listen,
It's
that's
been
the second largest scandal. It's been verified. No. But the thing is, though, is I think.
And let's just like call it what it is, Republican or Democrat, no matter what. That story, had it been put out by the press in the way that they would have covered it if that was Donald Jr.'s laptop,
100%.
That really could have swayed the election. It really could have. If the election was that close that year. And so I'm not a proponent for or against someone, but
free speech, freedom of speech, level playing field.
But tell the truth. That's what the media was supposed to do. Now everything is just like, I just don't understand. I don't know. I guess people need to be like, they need to wake up to what's happening in the media and not just relate it to Trump saying fake news. Because I think, people have such like.
No, let's talk about that. Because I mean, Trump literally was calling it out from day one. Fake news. Because, and he's not literally saying that they're lying. He's just basically saying they're unfair. I mean, they're unfair. They're biased on one way or another. The one thing I will have to say, like when people go, oh, freedom of speech, oh, you can say anything. No, anything hate speech, any hate speech should be like literally banned, and literally like that should be the censors. But if I said, I think that you were the dumbest bitch on the fucking planet, it doesn't matter how much political clout you have. My voice should be able to be heard. And be able to say it. Just like if I'm like, I think you're the smartest person
right.
and the most intelligent person.
Great example, for example, Andrew Tate, right? They deplatformed him. I think they debanked him. And I don't know what he said specifically. I mean, I think he's kind of a douche. Like, I think he's just like, whatever. I think he said to somebody in an interview, like, hypothetically, if I had a girlfriend and she did OnlyFans, I'd make her give me like 80% of what she makes. I forget what he said.
Yeah.
It's just like a stupid thing to say, but like he should be allowed to say it. Who cares about his hypothetical girlfriend? Whatever. It's ridiculous, but it's like, so for example, so they deplatform him. Now Twitter, Elon lets him back on Twitter. And all these people now follow him just because of it's like the Streisand effect where you say something and you say, I don't want people to see this thing. And then everybody wants to see the thing. So I followed him. And then like after a couple days, I'm like, this guy's annoying. So I unfollowed him. So it's like, let him talk. And people will
Let people be themselves.
right. And people will be able to check those people better than if you deplatform them. It just makes it seem like you're hiding something, you know?
You know what's funny is that Elon, if you go back in Elon's tweets, probably the past I'm going to say week, 'cause I'm not 100% when it happened, but somebody in the press did a fact check on his on Elon's actual Twitter following, and it popped up and it said that he had 70% fake followers or bots that were following Elon Musk, and then his response really was, "I'm working on that," like because I mean that's the whole purpose of why, because a lot of people are like, well, Elon, he said he wanted to buy it and he didn't want to buy it and he said he wanted to buy it. If you don't think that was a ploy, I mean, I think at one point he probably legitimately was like, oh my gosh, this platform is just full of bots. And I thought it was going to be like 5-10%. It's probably more like 30, 40, 50%. Everybody knows that. Anybody in the digital marketing world knows there's a whole bunch out there. I mean, when it comes to people fact checking or even Donald Trump, he's back on Twitter 3-4 days ago, right? They did a poll. 52% of people said no, let him back on. Donald Trump, when his account went live again, he had I think 1.1 million followers. All right, if you go look at it now, I don't know. Let's pop it up right now. I think he's literally at like over 80 million.
Oh, really? Wow.
That quickly that he gained. He hasn't tweeted anything yet.
It's twitter.com/realdonaldtrump, I believe.
Yeah. So, yep. So I don't know if you can see this. He's at 87.6 million followers.
And he hasn't even tweeted, right?
And he still has not tweeted. His last tweet was, to all those who have asked, I will not be going to the inauguration on January 20th. And then he got over 500,000, likes. I mean, the guy's a very smart businessman. He gets into office realizing he's the biggest fish in his camp, and then he goes off and...
He's just so polarizing is the problem now, and it's like, I don't know how you reel that back.
I think the Twitter thing was a great kind of segue towards, we've been talking here for an hour and over an hour, which is, I could literally talk to you for hours and hours and hours, and I enjoy the conversations with you. But I definitely want to invite you back.
Thank you.
I definitely think that we need to have a part 2 at some point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe we should do a part 2 on the update of the cookie jar.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because I'm really excited to be working with you on that.
I'm excited too.
My team, I literally took everything that you put together, and I sent it over, and they go, "Oh my God, are we going to be able to work on this?" And I'm like, I think so. Let me just work out the details with Ari, and we'll
yeah,
get
I'm
there.
Excited.
No, I'm really excited, and honestly, let's crush it. I've got my New Year's resolutions. I don't know about you, but one of them involves crushing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And 2022 was a good year for me. I think 2023 is going to be a phenomenal year for, I'm actually able to get around some of my good friends and bring them into kind of like into my world that want to be coming into my world.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was great to kind of, now intertwine with you. And
yeah, thanks for having me, and always good conversations. I think, it's cool to be around someone that's like an OG in social and digital. And I would encourage people to, I've grown on Twitter like 10,000 followers in the last couple months. So,
and by the way, OG stands for outstanding guy. It's not original gangster here. I'm not that old. I might be a little bit, but
it's okay. Yeah, I think I already aged myself, but saying when I started, but still, I think I'm excited for what we're gonna do together, and
absolutely.
I'm Little Miss Jacob on pretty much everything. So.
Oh yeah, and I think it pops up on right underneath her. It'll pop up at the Instagram handle.
Yes, your set is very professional, by the way. I'm very jealous of your set. Very cool.
Well, thank you. So thank you again for tuning in. Ari Jacobs, Brian Kipp. Till next time.